Okay, let's dive right into this. We're going to be talking about a work that is, well, it's provocative, it's complex, and it's a theological satirical fan fiction that pushes just about every boundary you can think of. And it does it to ask some really profound questions about power, freedom, and what we even consider to be sacred. And this is where it all kicks off, right here. This is the moment of divine confrontation that sets the stage for everything that follows. I mean, it's crude, it's absolutely shocking, and it's the spark that lights the fire in a story that uses vulgarity as a really high-concept artistic tool. So this is the big question we're going to be exploring today. Is this whole thing just meant to shock us? Or is there something more going on? How does a text like this use really transgressive themes, eroticism, blasphemy, humor, not just for the sake of it, but as these precise tools for a philosophical critique? A critique of power structures we don't even think to question. To get that, we've got to look at where this story even comes from. To really analyze this text properly, we can't just treat it like any other book. No way. We have to understand the entire framework it's playing in, and that is the world of fanfiction. Now, what's so interesting about this definition is how it frames fanfiction. It's not just some cheap copy, right? According to scholars Magnifico and Jones, it's a powerful act of transformation. It's where readers become authors themselves, to kind of reclaim and rewrite the big stories that shape our world. They take a story everyone knows, the canon, and they ask that powerful little question, what if? And wow, this table right here really shows you just how radical that what if can be. This fanfic doesn't just, tweak the source material a little bit. It flips the entire thing on its head. A cosmic battle between good and evil? Nope. Here, it becomes an intimate story of queer love. The central conflict isn't divine versus demonic anymore. It's a struggle for personal freedom against an authoritarian parent. In Jesus, he's not a savior for humanity. He's a liberator of himself. It's a powerful way to question our most foundational stories. And boom, there it is. This is basically his declaration of independence. It's the moment Jesus just completely rejects his pre-written role, his divine mission, and his Father's ownership over him. He chooses personal love over some grand, predetermined destiny, and that's a central act of defiance in these kinds of transformative stories. But here's the thing. This transformation isn't just dramatic. It's also really, really funny. So how does the text build on that fan fiction foundation? Well, that's only half the equation, right? The other critical tool that's at play here is satire. As Gulshan Agabe's research points out, satire isn't just about making you laugh. It's like a moral and cultural mirror. It uses humor, it uses ridicule to make us look critically at the power structures and the beliefs that we hold totally sacred. It's exactly why political cartoons or late-night comedy can feel so sharp. They use laughter to speak truth to power. And this right here is where the text gets both really clever and, really vulgar. By giving Jesus this moment of just deep, almost teenage insecurity about his own body, the story completely strips away all that divine mystique. Suddenly, he's not this untouchable icon. He's just a guy. A guy with an ego, with pride, and with some very, very earthly concerns. And that's the whole point of the satire here. It's all about humanizing the divine. When you give these all-powerful, sacred figures these very mortal flaws and vulgar anxieties, you make them fallible. And if they're fallible, well, then their absolute authority suddenly becomes questionable, doesn't it? And this isn't just about theology either. It's a commentary on any kind of unquestioned authority. It's suggesting that to really understand power, you gotta peel back the curtain and see the flawed, sometimes even petty motivations behind it all. So the key takeaway here is that these moments aren't just random shock value. The image of God as this flustered dad who keeps barging into his kid's room, that slapstick moment of God grabbing Satan, these are all very deliberate satirical choices. They show you just how absurd traditional power dynamics can be by putting them in this very domestic, almost trivial light. Okay, so we've got fanfiction remixing the sacred on one side, and satire critiquing it on the other. Now, let's look at how those two things fuse together to create something even more powerful, an entire aesthetic where obscenity itself becomes a tool for liberation. Yeah, I know it's crude, but this line right here, it perfectly captures the story's ultimate goal for its main character. It's not about piety, it's not about salvation in the traditional sense, it's about self-actualization. This is where Jesus' journey ends up, a total transformation from this obedient son into a fiercely autonomous being who completely owns his identity and his desires, all on his own terms. And when you look at it broken down like this, you can see it's not random at all. It's a calculated strategy, a kind of repeatable model for resisting a narrative. First, you shatter the biggest taboos to break the old rules. Second, you demystify the ultimate authority figure to show that, hey, power can be resisted. Third, the protagonist has to actively reclaim their own agency. And finally, the ultimate fanfiction move, you just escape the original story entirely to create a brand new universe. So, after all that, what's the takeaway? What do we get from this scandalous, vulgar, and, let's be honest, surprisingly philosophical piece of writing? Let's go back to our original question. What this text is really arguing is that true freedom often means you have to break the most sacred rules. By using fanfiction to remix the divine story and satire to critique its authority, this work turns an act of transgression into an engine of transformation. It's a really bold claim, right? That sometimes the only way to find a new truth is to completely shatter an old one. So in the end, this whole thing is about redefining boundaries. The sacred is no longer some distant, untouchable idea. It's deeply personal, and it can be rewritten. The erotic isn't just about pleasure. It becomes a political act of defiance against a repressive authority. And in this world, blasphemy isn't just an insult. It's a revelation, a new way of seeing things. And art, especially fanfiction, becomes this revolutionary tool for building whole new worlds. And all of that leaves us with one final provocative thought. This work really forces us to confront a much bigger question, not just for art, but maybe for life itself. Where exactly is that line between reverence and resistance? And when does challenging the sacred become a sacred act in its own right?